The harsh fluorescent lighting in the Portland Police Department cast everything in an unforgiving glare. I sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, my hands clasped so tightly in my lap that my knuckles had gone white. Across from me, my ex-husband Marcus strutted around the small interview room like he was addressing a jury, his expensive suit and polished shoes clicking against the linoleum floor with each calculated step. His mother, Patricia, sat ramrod straight in her chair, clutching her designer purse like a shield. Her steel gray hair was pulled back in its usual severe bun, and her thin lips were pressed into that familiar line of disdain I'd endured for 8 years of marriage. Detective Rodriguez typed something into his laptop, occasionally glancing up at me with the kind of look reserved for suspects rather than victims. "She's fabricating everything," Marcus declared for what felt like the 100th time, his voice carrying that practiced tone of concerned authority he'd perfected during our bitter divorce proceedings. "Check her social media posts, Detective. Look at her bank statements. She's been posting about how overwhelmed she is with single motherhood. She probably orchestrated this whole thing for attention and sympathy." My 5-year-old daughter Emma had been missing for 4 hours. 4 hours of pure hell, of searching every corner of Pioneer Courthouse Square, of calling her name until my voice was raw. And instead of helping find her, Marcus was using this nightmare as another opportunity to destroy me. My 9-year-old son Tyler sat in a corner of the room on a chair that dwarfed his small frame. He'd been so quiet since we'd arrived at the station that I kept glancing over to make sure he was still there. His legs swung nervously, not quite reaching the floor, and he clutched his Nintendo Switch against his chest like armor. His green eyes, so much like mine, darted between all the adults in the room, taking everything in with an intensity that worried me. "I would never hurt Emma," I said, my voice cracking despite my efforts to stay composed. "She's only 5 years old. She's probably terrified right now, and we're wasting precious time sitting here while she's out there somewhere." "Or you know exactly where she is," Patricia interjected, her voice dripping with venom. "I warned Marcus from the beginning that you were unstable. I told him you'd end up hurting those children, and look what's happened." The words felt like slaps across my face. This woman who had made every holiday dinner a battlefield, who had whispered criticism about me to anyone who would listen, was now using my missing daughter as ammunition in her war against me. My sweet Emma, with her blonde pigtails and gap-toothed smile, who just this morning had been singing along to Disney songs while she ate her cereal and fed bits of toast to our cat. Detective Rodriguez looked up from his laptop. "Mrs. Sullivan, I need you to understand the gravity of this situation. Your daughter has been missing for 4 hours. If you have any information about her whereabouts, this is the time to tell us." "I've told you everything," I said, feeling tears threatening to spill over. We were at Pioneer Courthouse Square for the Saturday market. Emma was playing on the small playground area while I talked to my sister about my mom's chemotherapy appointment. When I looked back, she was gone. Tyler was still right there playing on the climbing structure, but Emma had vanished. "Convenient," Marcus muttered, adjusting his tie with theatrical precision. A phone call no one else heard. A mysterious disappearance with no witnesses. "There were other families there," I protested. "The Hendersons were there with their twin boys. They helped me search. Mrs. Chen from Emma's preschool was at the flower stand and joined the search immediately." "Friends you probably convinced to lie for you," Patricia added, her voice sharp as a blade. "Or people you bribed to support your story." The accusation was so absurd I nearly laughed, but nothing about the situation was funny. These people who were supposed to care about Emma were more interested in destroying me than finding her. Every second we wasted in this room was another second my baby was out there, possibly hurt, definitely scared. "Mr. Sullivan," Detective Rodriguez addressed Marcus, "you filed for emergency custody modification yesterday, claiming your ex-wife has been making threats about taking the children out of state. Can you elaborate on that?" Marcus's eyes lit up with satisfaction. "She's been spiraling since the divorce was finalized. Lost her job at the marketing firm, behind on her rent, desperate for money. She told me she'd rather disappear with the kids than let me have them." "That's not what I said," I protested, but my voice was drowned out by Patricia's dramatic gasp. "I have witnesses," she announced, pulling out her phone. "I recorded our conversation at the grocery store last week. She threatened to take those children where Marcus would never find them." Detective Rodriguez made another note. "We'll need to hear that recording." The room felt like it was closing in on me. They'd already decided I was guilty of something horrible. The struggling single mother who couldn't keep her life together. The bitter ex-wife who would rather harm her own children than lose a custody battle. That's when Tyler shifted in his chair and spoke for the first time since we'd arrived at the station. His voice was small but clear, cutting through the adult chaos like a bell. "That's not what happened." Everyone turned to look at him. Marcus's face changed. That flash of irritation he always got when the children didn't follow his script. "Tyler, buddy, The grown-ups are talking, Marcus said in his fake gentle voice, the one he used when other people were watching. Why don't you go back to your game? But Tyler stood up, still clutching his Nintendo Switch, and looked directly at Detective Rodriguez. My dad is lying, and I know where Emma is. The room went completely silent. Marcus's face drained of color. Patricia's mouth fell open. My heart stopped beating for what felt like an eternity. Tyler took a deep breath, squared his small shoulders, and said the words that changed everything. Detective, should I tell you where Dad really hid my little sister? That Saturday morning had started with such normalcy. I remember standing at our kitchen window in our small apartment, watching the Oregon rain create patterns on the glass while coffee brewed behind me. It was one of those typical Portland November mornings where the sky was gray but not gloomy, and the air smelled clean and fresh. Emma was already awake, sitting cross-legged on our living room floor in her unicorn pajamas, having an elaborate tea party with her stuffed animals. She'd arranged them in a perfect circle, each with a tiny plastic cup in front of them. More tea, Mr. Bunny? She asked her favorite stuffed rabbit, carefully pretending to pour from her princess tea set. Oh, you want sugar? Of course you do. Tyler sat at our small kitchen table, his fourth-grade math homework spread out in front of him. He was 9, going on 30, always so serious about his schoolwork, even on weekends. His pencil moved carefully across the page as he worked through multiplication problems. Mom, what's 8 times 7? He asked, looking up at me with those intelligent green eyes. What do you think it is? I asked back, pouring orange juice into Emma's favorite cup, the one with the rainbow on it. He scrunched up his face in concentration. 56. That's right, buddy. You're getting really good at those. He beamed with pride and went back to his worksheet. If only I'd known how much intelligence and courage he'd need to show just hours later. The divorce had been final for 8 months, and we were finally settling into our new routine as a family of 3. The apartment was smaller than our old house in Lake Oswego. Sure, but it was ours. No more walking on eggshells around Marcus's unpredictable moods. No more pretending everything was fine when he came home late smelling like another woman's perfume. No more arguments that sent the kids hiding in their rooms. Marcus had fought the divorce viciously, not because he wanted to save our marriage, but because he couldn't stand the idea of losing anything that belonged to him. He was the successful corporate lawyer with the corner office and 6-figure salary. I was the marketing coordinator who'd been laid off during the company's downsizing. In his mind, that automatically made him the better parent. When the judge granted me primary custody anyway, citing Marcus's work schedule and history of missed visitations, something dark shifted in him. The mask he wore for judges and mediators started slipping, revealing the controlling, vindictive man I'd been married to for 8 miserable years. Mommy, are we seeing Daddy this weekend? Emma asked, wandering into the kitchen with her favorite stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. Not this weekend, sweetie. Next weekend is Daddy's time. That was the court-ordered schedule. Every other weekend, alternating holidays. Marcus had been pushing for 50-50 custody, claiming I was trying to alienate the children from him. His mother Patricia had been documenting everything, showing up at school events with her little notebook, recording every minute I was late, every time Emma's hair wasn't perfectly braided, every time Tyler forgot his lunch money. She's building a case against you, my lawyer had warned me. Document everything on your side, too. So I did. The folder on my bedroom dresser was thick with receipts, school reports, medical records, photos of the kids thriving despite the upheaval. Marcus had missed his last 2 scheduled weekends because of work emergencies, but somehow had time to take his new girlfriend Rebecca to Hawaii. He'd missed Emma's preschool Halloween party because he forgot, then blamed me for not reminding him. Can we make waffles? Emma asked, climbing onto her chair at the table. With strawberries? With strawberries, I agreed, reaching for the waffle iron. As I mixed the batter, Tyler put down his pencil. Mom, why does Grandma Patricia hate us so much? She doesn't hate you, sweetheart. She just has complicated feelings about the divorce. She hates you, though, Emma piped up matter-of-factly. She told Mrs. Anderson at the grocery store that you're a terrible mommy and that Daddy should have us all the time. I set down the whisk and knelt beside Emma's chair. Sometimes adults say things when they're upset that they don't really mean. What matters is that I love you and Tyler more than all the stars in the sky. More than all the waffles in the world? Emma giggled. Even more than that, I laughed, ruffling her blonde curls. We ate breakfast together, Emma getting syrup on everything within a 3-foot radius, Tyler methodically cutting his waffle into perfect squares. They were good kids, happy kids, despite everything they'd been through. The court-appointed counselor had noted in her report how well-adjusted they seemed, how secure their bond with me was. Can we go to the Saturday market today? Tyler asked as he helped me clear the dishes. Emma wants to see the puppies at the pet rescue booth. Of course. We'll go after lunch. Those normal, everyday moments feel like a lifetime ago now. If I could go back, would I do anything differently? Would I have stayed home, ignored my sister's call, held Emma's hand tighter. The what-ifs could drive a person insane if you let them. Pioneer Courthouse Square was bustling that afternoon, filled with families enjoying the Saturday market despite the typical Oregon drizzle. The market buzzed with vendors selling everything from handmade jewelry to fresh flowers, street musicians playing acoustic guitars, and the delicious smell of food trucks offering everything from Thai curry to gourmet grilled cheese. Emma had been so excited when we arrived, practically bouncing out of her car seat as I unbuckled her. "Puppies first! Puppies first!" she chanted, pulling me toward the pet rescue booth where volunteers were showcasing adoptable dogs. I lifted her up so she could see over the crowd to pet a golden retriever puppy. Her face lit up with pure joy as the puppy licked her fingers. Tyler stood beside us, more reserved but equally enchanted by a small terrier mix. "Can we get a puppy, Mom?" Emma asked, her blue eyes wide with hope. "Maybe someday, when we have a bigger place," I told her, the same answer I always gave. After the puppies, we wandered through the market. I bought Emma a small kaleidoscope from a toy vendor, and Tyler picked out a book about space exploration. We were heading toward the small playground area in the square when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my sister Rachel's name. I almost didn't answer, but our mother was going through chemotherapy, and I'd been waiting for updates about her latest treatment. "Let me answer this real quick," I told the kids, stepping just a few feet away to a nearby bench. Both children were clearly visible. Emma had claimed a spot on the small slide. Tyler was on the monkey bars. "I can see you both. Stay right there." "Nat, Mom's oncologist wants to adjust her chemo schedule," Rachel said immediately. "Something about her white blood cell count being low. She's scared it means the treatment isn't working." "It doesn't mean that," I assured her, keeping my eyes on both kids. Emma was going down the slide backward now, giggling with delight. Tyler had made it halfway across the monkey bars. "Lower white cell counts are normal during chemo. It just means they need to be more careful about infection risk." "Can you explain it to her? You know she listens to you better about medical stuff since you worked at the clinic." "I'll call her tonight after the kids are in bed. Listen, I'm at the market with them right now, so I should..." "Just one more thing," Rachel interrupted. The oncologist also said. That's when I looked back at the playground. Tyler was still on the monkey bars, but the slide was empty. Emma's kaleidoscope lay abandoned on the ground at the bottom. "Emma?" I called, ending the call without explanation. "Emma, where are you, sweetie?" Tyler dropped from the monkey bars and ran over. "She was just here, Mom. She was right there on the slide." We checked everywhere, behind the food trucks, in the nearby bathroom, around every vendor booth. Other families started noticing our panic. A woman with twin toddlers helped me search the parking areas. A vendor left his booth to help check the surrounding streets. "What's she wearing?" someone asked. "Pink jacket, purple leggings, light-up sneakers," I managed to say, my voice getting higher with each word. Within 15 minutes, it felt like half the market was searching. Someone called 911. I called Marcus, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. "Emma's missing," I said the moment he answered. "We're at Pioneer Courthouse Square. I can't find her anywhere." "What do you mean you can't find her? How do you lose a 5-year-old? His voice was immediately sharp, accusatory. "Just get here, please." The police arrived in what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Detective Rodriguez, a middle-aged man with kind eyes that turned suspicious the moment Marcus arrived with his entourage. Marcus had brought Patricia with him, because of course he had. She emerged from his BMW like a bird of prey sensing weakness, her sharp features already set in an expression of grim satisfaction. "I knew something like this would happen," she announced to anyone within earshot. "I've been documenting her negligence for months. Those children are never properly supervised." "I was 10 feet away," I protested, but Marcus was already pulling Detective Rodriguez aside. "She's been unstable since the divorce," Marcus said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Lost her job, can't make rent, desperate for attention. I filed for emergency custody yesterday because I was worried about exactly this kind of situation." "You filed for custody yesterday?" I spun around to face him. "You didn't tell me that." "Why would I tell you? So you could disappear with them?" He turned back to Detective Rodriguez. "Check her phone records. Check her social media. She's been posting constantly about how hard single motherhood is, how she's at her breaking point. This has attention-seeking written all over it." "Attention-seeking?" I could barely breathe. "Marcus, our daughter is missing." Patricia stepped forward, placing a perfectly manicured hand on her son's shoulder. "Detective, I've watched her deteriorate for months. She's vindictive, unstable, and now my granddaughter is gone. I always said she'd be the death of those children." The interrogation room at the Portland Police Department smelled like stale coffee and industrial cleaner. They'd called it a voluntary interview, but nothing about being there felt voluntary. Detective Rodriguez sat across from me with a notepad, writing down everything I said while occasionally glancing at Marcus, who had positioned himself against the wall like he was overseeing the proceedings. Patricia sat in the corner, her leather purse clutched in her lap, her phone out, no doubt documenting this entire encounter for her crusade against me. "Walk me through the phone call again," Detective Rodriguez said, his tone professionally neutral, but his eyes skeptical. "My sister Rachel called about my mother's chemotherapy treatment. The call lasted maybe 2 minutes. I was standing right by the playground, watching both children." "But you weren't watching them," Marcus interrupted. "If you were watching, Emma wouldn't be missing." "Mr. Sullivan, please," Detective Rodriguez said mildly, but he made another note on his pad. Through the window of the interview room, I could see Tyler in what they called the family room, sitting at a child-sized table with a social worker named Mr. Kim. They'd given him some coloring books and juice, trying to keep him occupied while the adults tried to make sense of this nightmare. He was drawing something with intense focus, his tongue poking out slightly the way it always did when he concentrated. Every so often, he'd glance up at the window, and I'd catch his eye and try to smile reassuringly. "Mrs. Sullivan," Detective Rodriguez continued, "your ex-husband has provided us with some concerning information. He says you've been making threats about taking the children and disappearing." "That's absolutely not true." Marcus pulled out his phone with theatrical timing. "I have recordings," he announced. "Listen for yourself." He pressed play, and my voice filled the room, distorted and choppy. "I can't let you take them. Never see them again. I'll do whatever it takes." My blood turned to ice. I recognized fragments of those words, but not in that context, not in that order. "That's edited," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Those are pieces from different conversations. I said I couldn't let you take them to Seattle because I'd never see them again. You told me you were considering relocating for your new job." "She's always been manipulative," Patricia said sharply. "Ask anyone at the children's school. Ask the neighbors. She's completely unhinged." "The teachers at school love me," I protested. "Mrs. Patterson just sent me a note last week saying how well Tyler is adjusting to 4th grade." "Because you probably threatened her too," Patricia shot back. Detective Rodriguez held up his hand for quiet, then slid a document across the table. "This is the emergency custody petition Mr. Sullivan filed yesterday. It details several incidents of alleged negligence, leaving the children unsupervised, failure to maintain stable housing, emotional instability." I stared at the document in disbelief. Failure to maintain stable housing? We moved to a smaller apartment because my ex-husband is 3 months behind on child support while he takes vacations with his girlfriend. "Your financial problems are not my responsibility," Marcus said coldly. "I pay what the court ordered." "When you remember to," I shot back. "And it's not about the money, Marcus. It's about Emma being afraid to sleep in her own bed because she thinks you're going to take her away from me." Detective Rodriguez made another note. "Mrs. Sullivan, have you been experiencing unusual stress lately? Depression? Thoughts of harming yourself or others? I'm a single mother with 2 children and a mother going through cancer treatment. Of course I'm stressed, but I would never ever hurt my children. Except right now, one of them is missing," Marcus said quietly. The words hit me like a physical blow. I wanted to scream at him to help find our daughter instead of trying to destroy me, but I knew that would only make me look more unstable. Through the window, I saw Tyler suddenly stop coloring. He stood up, and Mr. Kim tried to redirect him back to the table, but Tyler shook his head firmly and walked toward the door. "I need to talk to my mom," I heard him say clearly through the thin walls. "Sweetheart, the adults are having an important conversation right now," Mr. Kim replied gently. "About my sister, and they're getting it all wrong." The door opened, and Tyler walked in with the kind of determination I'd seen when he decided he was ready to learn to ride his bike without training wheels. Mr. Kim followed, looking apologetic. "I'm sorry. He insisted on—" "Tyler, buddy, go back and color," Marcus interrupted, switching to his fake father voice. "Daddy and Mommy are talking to the detective." "You're not talking," Tyler said flatly. "You're lying." The room went completely silent. Marcus's jaw tightened, a tell I recognized from years of marriage. He was recalculating, trying to figure out his next move. "Tyler, you don't understand grown-up conversations," Marcus said carefully. Tyler turned to face Detective Rodriguez directly, his small frame straight and confident despite his fear. "I understand everything, and I know something else too. Something about where Emma really is." Tyler stood in the center of that interrogation room like David facing Goliath. He still held the picture he'd been drawing. I could see now it was some kind of map, drawn in red and blue crayon. "What do you know about your sister, Tyler?" Detective Rodriguez asked gently, pulling out a chair for him. Tyler didn't sit. Instead, he placed his drawing on the table and pointed to it. "Yesterday, when Dad picked us up for dinner, he told Emma they were going to play a special game today. A secret game." Marcus shot to his feet. He's confused. Kids make up stories when they're scared. "Let him talk," Detective Rodriguez said firmly. Tyler's voice was steady, clear, and terrifyingly mature. "Dad told Emma that when we went to the market today, she should wait until Mom wasn't looking, then run to the parking area where Uncle Steve would be waiting in his red truck. Uncle Steve would take her to Grandpa Rodriguez's cabin for a surprise party." That's ridiculous, Patricia sputtered. A 5-year-old could never remember such complex instructions. Dad made her practice, Tyler said simply. 3 times yesterday at the restaurant. He gave her ice cream each time she did it right. Run to the red door. That was the code for Uncle Steve's truck. Big surprise at the cabin. That's what she was supposed to remember. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. Rodriguez's cabin. The one by Mount Hood where you took them camping last month. Marcus's face had gone from red to ash gray. He's making this up. Maybe he had a bad dream about it. It's not a dream, Tyler insisted. He turned to Detective Rodriguez with the gravity of a much older child. Emma is at the cabin with Miss Rebecca, Dad's girlfriend. She was supposed to watch her until tomorrow. Then Dad was going to find her and be the hero who saved her. You little liar, Patricia hissed, standing up so quickly her purse fell to the floor. How dare you make up such horrible stories about your father? But Tyler wasn't finished. I heard Grandma Patricia on the phone with Dad yesterday. She said once everyone thought Mom lost Emma or hurt her, the judge would give Dad both of us for good. She said the police would believe Dad because he's a lawyer and owns a house, and Mom is just a broke single mother with mental problems. Those were her exact words. Detective Rodriguez was already reaching for his radio. What's the address of this cabin? I don't know the exact address, I said desperately. Marcus never told me where it was. 2847 Forest Service Road 42. Tyler recited calmly. I remembered it because 2847 is my high score on my favorite video game. Detective Rodriguez spoke rapidly into his radio, dispatching units to the location. Marcus grabbed for his phone, but Detective Rodriguez was faster. I'll need to hold on to this for now, he said. You can't seriously believe a 9-year-old's fantasy, Marcus said, but his controlled facade was cracking like ice in the spring. He's been coached. Natalie probably told him to say all this. I didn't know anything about this, I whispered, staring at my son in amazement and horror. Tyler, how long have you known? Detective Rodriguez asked. Since yesterday at dinner. But I thought maybe Dad would change his mind. I thought maybe he'd realize it was wrong. Tyler looked at Marcus with disappointment that broke my heart. But when Emma disappeared at the market and you started blaming Mom, I knew you weren't going to stop. 25 agonizing minutes passed. Detective Rodriguez's radio crackled to life, and he listened intently, his expression shifting from professional skepticism to grim satisfaction. They found her, he announced. 5-year-old girl matching Emma's description at the cabin. There's a woman there, Rebecca Matthews, who says Marcus Sullivan asked her to babysit for the weekend. She claims she had no idea the child was reported missing. I collapsed forward in my chair, sobs racking my body. She's okay? Emma's okay. She's fine. Officers report she's playing with puppies. Apparently there are several dogs at the property. They're bringing her back now. Marcus stood up, making one last desperate attempt. This is all a misunderstanding. I was trying to give Natalie a break. She's been so overwhelmed lately. I thought if she had some quiet time this weekend, it would help her mental state. Then why didn't you tell anyone? Detective Rodriguez asked. Why let everyone search? Why accuse her of being an unfit mother? I panicked. I wasn't thinking clearly. Tyler walked over to where Patricia's purse had fallen and picked up a small notebook that had spilled out. He handed it to Detective Rodriguez. Page 23, he said quietly. She wrote down the whole plan. She even practiced what to tell the police to make them think Mom was crazy. Patricia lunged for the notebook, but Detective Rodriguez was already flipping through it, his eyebrows rising with each page. Mr. Sullivan, Mrs. Sullivan, he said grimly. You're both under arrest for filing false reports, custodial interference, and conspiracy. This notebook contains detailed plans to frame Mrs. Sullivan and manipulate law enforcement. This is insane, Marcus shouted as they handcuffed him. I want my lawyer. That notebook doesn't prove anything. Rebecca will tell you, I just asked her to babysit. But everyone in that room knew the truth. The elaborate plan was there in black and white, in Patricia's own handwriting, complete with timeline and talking points. The moment they brought Emma through those police station doors, nothing else in the world mattered. Her blonde hair was messy, her pink jacket had what looked like dog hair all over it, and she was carrying a small puppy in her arms. She saw me and broke free from the officer's gentle hold, running straight into my arms while carefully protecting the puppy. Mommy, I went on the best adventure ever. Miss Rebecca has 6 puppies, and this one is mine now. Can we keep him, please? I held her so tight she squeaked, breathing in her little girl's smell of strawberry shampoo and something that might have been puppy breath. Over her head, I watched as they led Marcus and Patricia to separate police cars. Marcus kept shouting about lawyers and misunderstandings, but Patricia had gone completely silent, her face a mask of shocked disbelief that her perfect plan had been exposed by a 9-year-old. Tyler stood beside us, and I pulled him into our hug, puppy and all. You saved your sister, I whispered into his hair. You saved all of us. I just told the truth, he said simply, but I was really scared they wouldn't believe me. I believed you, I told him fiercely. I will always believe you. 3 months later, we sat in family court for what the judge assured us would be the final custody hearing. Marcus's high-priced legal team had tried every angle: temporary insanity, entrapment, claiming Tyler had been coached by me. But the evidence was overwhelming. Patricia's notebook contained 6 months' worth of dated entries documenting their plan to prove I was an unfit mother. Text messages between Marcus and his brother Steve showed the cabin plot being organized weeks in advance. Rebecca Matthews testified that Marcus had told her I'd agreed to let him have an extra weekend with the kids and that it was supposed to be a surprise. "Mr. Sullivan," the judge said, looking over her reading glasses with obvious disgust, "you orchestrated an elaborate scheme to traumatize your own children and destroy their mother, all to win a custody battle. Your 9-year-old son showed more integrity and moral courage in that police station than you've demonstrated throughout this entire case." She awarded me full custody with no visitation rights for Marcus until he completed court-mandated therapy and anger management. The criminal charges were still pending, but his lawyer had warned him to expect significant jail time. Outside the courthouse, Marcus's brother Steve approached me hesitantly. We'd always gotten along during family gatherings, and he tried to stay neutral during the divorce. "I'm sorry, Natalie," he said quietly. "I knew Mom was bitter about the divorce, but I never imagined they'd go this far. When Marcus asked me to help with surprising the kids, I thought it was legitimate, if I'd known." I appreciated his apology, but trust would take time to rebuild. That's what our family therapist kept telling us. Healing isn't a straight line. Some days Emma would ask why Daddy couldn't come to her dance recital. Some nights Tyler would wake up from nightmares about police stations and people not believing him. But we were healing, slowly and carefully, together. 6 months after that terrible day at the market, I got a new job at a nonprofit organization helping families navigate the legal system. Better hours, better pay, and work that felt meaningful. We moved to a small house with a real yard where Emma could play with the puppy. Yes, we kept him. His name is Detective Biscuit. And Tyler could set up the telescope I bought him for his birthday. The neighbors were a young couple with 2 kids who quickly became surrogate aunts and uncles, filling the void left by Patricia's toxic presence. "Mom," Tyler said one evening as I tucked him into bed, "do you think Dad ever really loved us?" It was the hardest question he'd asked yet, and I thought carefully before answering. "I think your father loves you the only way he knows how to love anyone, as something that belongs to him. But that's not real love, Tyler. Real love means wanting someone to be happy, even if it's not with you. Real love means protecting people, not using them." "I feel sorry for him sometimes," Tyler said quietly. "He lost us because he tried too hard to own us." The wisdom of my 9-year-old never stopped amazing me. Marcus had been so focused on winning, on controlling, on possessing, that he destroyed any chance of a genuine relationship with his children. Emma barely remembered him now, and Tyler had told the court counselor he wasn't ready to see his father again. Last week, we went back to Pioneer Courthouse Square for the first time since that terrible day. I pushed Emma on the swings while Tyler practiced tricks on the monkey bars. My phone rang, my sister calling with an update about Mom's successful cancer treatment, and for just a moment my chest tightened. But then Tyler called out from the monkey bars, "Mom, it's okay. We're right here. We're not going anywhere." He was right. We were exactly where we belonged, together, safe, and finally, free from the people who had tried to use love as a weapon against us. Marcus had tried to turn my children into pawns in his game, but he'd only succeeded in teaching them the difference between real love and manipulation. Tyler had found his voice that day in the police station, and I knew he'd never be silenced again. And Emma? She still asks about the puppies at the cabin sometimes, but she's learned that the best adventures are the ones where you come home to the people who really love you. That's the unexpected gift hidden in the worst day of our lives. My children learned that truth is more powerful than lies, that courage comes in small packages, and that sometimes the smallest voice in the room can bring down the loudest bully. If this story resonated with you, please share it. Sometimes we all need to be reminded that justice exists, that children are braver than we think, and that the truth really can set us free. The months that followed were a journey I never could have imagined. The criminal trial made local news. Prominent attorney conspires to frame ex-wife, and suddenly our story was public. Marcus's law firm quietly let him go, citing conduct unbecoming. Patricia's country club friends stopped returning her calls when the details of her notebook became public record. But the real healing happened in the quiet moments. Tyler started sleeping through the night again after months of nightmares. Emma stopped asking when Daddy was coming back and instead started asking if Detective Biscuit could learn more tricks. I enrolled in evening classes to finish my marketing degree, something I'd put on hold during my marriage. Tyler would sit at the kitchen table doing his homework while I studied, both of us working toward our futures. Emma would curl up between us with her coloring books, the 3 of us creating a new kind of family homework time. "Mom, What's resilience mean? Tyler asked one evening, looking up from his vocabulary worksheet. It means bouncing back when something tries to knock you down, I told him. It means being like a tree that bends in the storm but doesn't break. He nodded thoughtfully. Like what we did. Exactly like what we did. The therapy sessions were harder than I'd expected. Dr. Morrison, our family counselor, helped us process not just the trauma of that day, but years of manipulation and gaslighting that had preceded it. Tyler talked about feeling responsible for protecting Emma, about the weight of carrying adult secrets. Emma drew pictures of storms and rainbows, working through her confusion about why someone who was supposed to love her had used her as a pawn. Children are remarkably resilient, Dr. Morrison told me during one of our sessions. But Tyler's going to need ongoing support. What he did that day, standing up to authority figures, speaking truth to power, that takes enormous courage. We need to help him understand that he shouldn't have had to be that brave. The legal proceedings dragged on for almost a year. Marcus pleaded guilty to multiple charges and received 18 months in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. Patricia was sentenced to 6 months of house arrest and community service. Both were ordered to pay restitution for the police resources wasted during the search. Marcus's lawyer approached me about a plea deal that would have reduced his sentence in exchange for giving up all parental rights permanently. I found myself in the strange position of having to decide my ex-husband's fate. What do you want to do? My lawyer asked. I thought about Tyler's words that night in the police station. He lost us because he tried too hard to own us. I want him to get help, I said finally. Real help, and I want him to understand what he did to his children. But I won't let him hide from the consequences. In the end, Marcus served his full sentence. He wrote letters from prison, not to me, but to Tyler and Emma. Dr. Morrison advised me to save them, but not share them with the children until they were older and could process them properly. The letters revealed a man slowly coming to terms with what he'd done. In the final one, written just before his release, he wrote, I thought love meant possession. I thought being a father meant controlling every outcome. I was wrong about everything that mattered. Tyler found that letter one day when he was 13, looking for school supplies in my desk drawer. He read it silently, then looked up at me with those same intelligent green eyes. Do you think he means it? He asked. I think he's learning, I said. But meaning it and proving it are different things. Tyler nodded, wise beyond his years. I'm not ready to find out yet. That's okay. You get to decide when and if you're ever ready. Emma, now 8, had a different relationship with the memories. She remembered the puppies more clearly than the fear, the adventure more than the abandonment. When kids at school asked about her father, she'd shrug and say, he made bad choices, so he can't live with us anymore. The simplicity of children's truth never ceased to amaze me. By the time Tyler turned 14, our life had settled into something I'd never thought possible during those dark months after the divorce. Actual happiness. I'd been promoted to program director at the nonprofit, helping other families navigate crisis situations. Tyler was on the honor roll and the debate team, still that serious, thoughtful kid, but now with a confidence that came from knowing his voice mattered. Emma was a second-grade social butterfly who collected friends like some kids collect stamps. We'd moved again to a bigger house with a proper yard for Detective Biscuit and a separate office where I could work from home. The neighbors were a retired teacher named Mrs. Yang, who'd adopted us as her unofficial grandchildren, and a young family with twins who provided Emma with built-in playmates. You know, Tyler said one evening as we sat on the back porch watching Emma teach Detective Biscuit to play hide and seek, I used to think our family was broken. What do you think now? I think we're exactly with a proper yard for Detective Biscuit and a separate office where I could work from home. The neighbors were a retired teacher named Mrs. Yang, who'd adopted us as her unofficial grandchildren, and a young family with twins who provided Emma with built-in playmates. You know, Tyler said one evening as we sat on the back porch watching Emma teach Detective Biscuit to play hide and seek, I used to think our family was broken. What do you think now? I think we're exactly the right size, he said. Maybe we were always supposed to be just the 3 of us. That summer, we took our first real vacation, a camping trip to Crater Lake. No lawyers, no court dates, no documenting everything for custody evaluations. Just us, sleeping in tents, roasting marshmallows, and Tyler teaching Emma to identify constellations. On our last night there, Emma crawled into my sleeping bag during a thunderstorm. Mommy, she whispered, are you happy? It was such a simple question, but it stopped me cold. When was the last time someone had asked me that? When was the last time I'd even asked myself? Yes, sweetheart, I whispered back, surprised by how true it was. I'm very happy. Me too, she said, snuggling closer. Tyler's happy too? I can tell because he doesn't have that worried look anymore. From the tent next to ours, I heard Tyler's voice. I can hear you guys whispering. And yes, Emma, I'm happy too. We all dissolved into giggles, muffled by sleeping bags and the sound of rain on the tent. In that moment, I realized something profound. Marcus hadn't just lost the custody battle. He'd lost the chance to be part of this joy, this healing, this beautiful, ordinary life we'd built together. His obsession with winning had cost him everything worth having. The next morning, as we packed up our campsite, Tyler found a piece of quartz in the lake bed. It was cloudy and rough on one side, but the other side was perfectly clear. "It's like us," Emma announced, holding it up to the sunlight. The bad stuff made us clear on the other side. Sometimes wisdom comes from the most unexpected places. 3 years later, Marcus was released from prison. His lawyer contacted mine about visitation, supervised, therapeutic, with the children's consent. Tyler, now 17 and preparing for college, declined politely but firmly. Emma, 11 and fierce in her independence, simply said no thank you and went back to her homework. I sent Marcus a letter through the lawyers. "The children are thriving. They've built a life without you, but they've also processed what happened in healthy ways. If and when they're ever ready to have a relationship with you, it will be on their terms, not yours." He never responded, and we never heard from him again. Tyler graduated as valedictorian of his high school class. His speech was about truth-telling and moral courage, about how sometimes the smallest voices need to speak the loudest truths. He never mentioned that day in the police station directly, but everyone who knew our story understood. Emma grew up to be exactly the kind of person you'd hope. Strong, empathetic, unafraid to speak up when something wasn't right. She volunteered at the animal shelter, played 3 instruments, and had a smile that could light up a room. Both of my children learned something that no parenting book could have taught them, that love isn't about control or possession. Real love gives people the freedom to make their own choices, even when those choices are hard. On Tyler's 18th birthday, he came to me with a question that had been weighing on his mind. "Mom, do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't spoken up that day?" I thought about it carefully before answering. I think the truth would have come out eventually. But Tyler, you didn't just save Emma and me that day. You saved yourself. You learned that your voice matters, that standing up for what's right is always worth the risk. He smiled, that same thoughtful smile he'd had as a 9-year-old, but now backed by years of confidence and growth. "I want to study law," he said, "but not the kind Dad practiced. I want to help kids like us, kids who need someone to believe them when they tell the truth." And that's exactly what he did. Tyler graduated from law school summa cum laude and now works as a child advocate attorney, representing children in custody cases and abuse situations. Emma became a veterinarian, still collecting animals that need homes, still believing in happy endings. As for me, I learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can become the foundation for the best thing. That crisis can reveal strength you never knew you had. That children are far braver and wiser than adults give them credit for. And sometimes, just sometimes, the truth really does set you free. 10 years after that terrible day at Pioneer Courthouse Square, we went back. Not to relive trauma, but to celebrate how far we'd come. Emma, now 15 and taller than me, pushed Detective Biscuit, now an elderly but dignified golden retriever, in a wagon because his arthritis made long walks difficult. Tyler, home from his first year of law school, carried the picnic basket. We spread out a blanket near the playground where it all happened, and I watched my children, no longer children really, laugh and joke and plan their futures. Emma was debating between veterinary school and wildlife conservation. Tyler was interning at a legal aid clinic, already making a difference in other families' lives. "You know what I remember most about that day?" Emma said, lying on her back and looking up at the clouds. "Not the scary parts. I remember Tyler being the bravest person I'd ever seen." "I remember being terrified that no one would believe me," Tyler admitted. "But I remember thinking that if I didn't try, something even worse might happen to our family." "And I remember," I said, realizing that my children were stronger and braver than I'd ever imagined, and that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need protection from. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, 3 people who had weathered a storm together and come out stronger on the other side. "Are you writing all this down?" Emma asked suddenly. "Because this would make an incredible story, and maybe it would help other families going through the same thing. And that's how this story came to be written. Not for revenge or vindication, but because sometimes sharing our truth can help others find theirs. Because children's voices matter. Because families come in all shapes and sizes, and the best ones are built on love, not control. Because sometimes the smallest person in the room really can change everything. If you're reading this and you're in a similar situation, if you're being gaslit, manipulated, or told that your truth doesn't matter, please know that it does. Your voice matters. Your children's voices matter. And there are people who will believe you when you speak up. The truth doesn't always win immediately. But it's patient, and it's persistent, and eventually it finds a way to the surface. Just like it did for us that day in Portland, when a 9-year-old boy stood up to the adults and changed all our lives forever.